Hello and welcome to episode 2 of WoT Takes, where I discuss a hotly debated topic within the Wheel of Time fandom. Now, with episode 2, I am jumping right into an extremely sensitive topic, which is my contention that Brandon Sanderson did not get Matt wrong. Now, before you immediately turn off the video because you disagree with me, which from my experience is just about everyone, this is definitely one I find myself in the group of, I assume there have to be some others, but the very small group, there are dozens of us, dozens, that actually does not think Matt was wrong when Brandon took over. Now, there's some nuance to this, and I will say right off the bat that Brandon Sanderson did write Matt very differently than Robert Jordan wrote Matt, but the character itself, I think, is still the same character, and the regression people talk about to an extent as well, I actually think makes sense and fits Matt's character. Matt is one of my favorite characters, one of the characters I most enjoyed reading, so I was very aware of the changes, and there are some things that I think went maybe a little bit too far, but I do keep my contention that Brandon Sanderson didn't get the character wrong. Now, I do want to note, considering I'm talking about Brandon Sanderson and his writing of Matt, this will have some spoilers for the last 3 books. I'm not going to get into anything too terribly deep, so if you're okay with knowing some basic things that happen, you might still be okay with this video, but I do want to make it really clear that it is possible that I will mention some spoilers for the later books, but more so, this is going to be talking about Matt as a character in general. So, Matrim Cauthon. He starts out the story as he's the troublemaker. He's the one who gets the gang into trouble, pulls pranks. Yes, even badgers are involved occasionally. And then getting a little bit later into the story, Matt is shown to be, if not quite, I won't say a womanizer, definitely kind of a flirt and a player, so to speak. We very often see him flirting with about any cute girl in the tavern he's in the palace he's in. It doesn't really matter where. That is just kind of Matt. Now, the thing is, when it comes to Jordan's writing style, he's usually pretty subtle with how he writes Matt. We have a ton of jokes throughout where Matt is just thinking, where on earth did Oliver learn to talk to women like that or to act like that and act like this roguish manner? And the whole point of the joke is that he learned it from Matt. Even though in some of the later books we see Matt actually doing these things a whole lot less, it's made pretty obvious by the text that that's still Matt. He's still doing that. He's still a bit of a ruffian, a bit of a rogue. And in my opinion, anybody who tries to say Matt is not a roguish character is just flat out wrong. It's simply the fact that Jordan liked to use a very light hand with how much he showed you and keep the running joke on where, oh, it must be one of Oliver's uncles, one of the other people in the band with the red hand. That's where he's getting it. And the other characters, even when he makes comments like this, have that kind of, oh, you, obviously it's you type reaction. And it's pretty evident it's there. So really, where the first problem comes in is Brandon used a very heavy hand. He brought all of that out to the forefront, the joking, the hitting on women, and he made it a lot more obvious. So it was a jarring shift in the writing style. There were always going to be changes in the writing style with someone else taking over. Nobody's going to be able to write quite like Robert Jordan did. But the thing is, Brandon took the roots of the character that were there and he just brought them out. He wasn't being subtle like Robert Jordan did, but it's still the pieces of the character that were there. And that's kind of the main part where this is debated. And for the most part, people just say Brandon ruined Matt, and a lot of people like me, Matt is one of their favorite, if not their favorite character. So it was something that really got a lot of backlash. And I am fully aware that even Brandon he came out and said that he got Matt wrong and that it was a mistake and he did it wrong. even with him saying that, I think really most of that's because of all the backlash, and he was admitting that it didn't work out. But I still don't think he actually did get Matt wrong. It's more so bringing it up to the forefront. Now, there are a few pieces where Matt seems to regress to more like he was when he was younger. Likely, this is because Brandon did a full reread before he started writing and had that kind of younger Matt where he's a little bit more out there and probably has his antics going on a lot more, had that more fresh in his mind versus the older Matt as well. So I think it makes sense. Now, I will say I'm not going to defend the letter with the typos. It was funny, but it did not fit. And Matt not being able to spell, I completely agree with people who say there's been no showing that there's literacy issues with Matt or with pretty much any other character. Everybody can read, everybody seems to be able to write. This isn't one of those places where people can't. That's pretty common in other fantasy where being able to read and write is not a given, but we don't see that in the Wheel of Time. I think that was putting in a little bit too much comic relief, but I also think it was done out of love for the character and trying to have some fun there. But one of the other pieces is specifically Matt and the Badger, and I believe the Gathering Storm. Correct me if I'm wrong. And Matt seeming to just act a little bit more childlike. But honestly, if you think about the character once again, this is Matt. He grew up like that. He was the troublemaker. He liked to pull the pranks. He's moved on more to women than to pranks. But think about the events that have happened in Matt's life. This is where there will be some spoilers throughout, but I'm not going to be super specific. But we have the entire situation with Tylan, where everything was kind of turned on him. Instead of him objectifying a woman or women, he was being objectified, and it was a complete shift. And we then see him actually trying to get serious, everything with Tuan. That whole arc is him getting a little bit more serious, but still kind of pulling the same things he does, trying to be romantic. And it's really that was where he starts to seem to grow up a little bit. But then you have to think about this type of character, and all of a sudden, his life, his future is set in stone in a very serious way. He's getting married or is already married, I suppose, technically. And he kind of realizes that, wow, everything is changing, and he kind of rebels against it. And the seeds were already there. He doesn't want to be royalty. He doesn't want to be a lord. He's always is constant whenever the band calls him Lord Matt. I'm not a lord. He doesn't want all that responsibility, and he sees all of this happening, everything changing. And Matt does seem like the kind of person who aggresses a little bit in that type of event. Think about, I'm sure you know somebody in your life, they were always a little bit immature, and then maybe they're getting married and it's getting a bit more serious, and they think, I want to go out and, have my last hurrah, just go crazy, do something stupid, and they kind of have that moment where they're a little bit freaked out. And I think that is Matt. And while Brandon may have gone a bit far with some pieces, that's something that for the character makes sense for me. Matt's always been one of the less serious characters in his demeanor, and that's his personality. And so that personality being shown a little bit more clearly, while the writing ship may be jarring, it fits. And I know most people won't agree with this, and I'm happy for you to leave any comments about why you disagree with me and think I'm wrong. But I think if you really look at the character, his arc, his growth, a little bit of regression makes sense. This is a character who has not jumped straight into his responsibilities. We see Rand very early on who decides what he has to be, and he's going. He's completely there. He still has a lot of growth in himself, but he is accepted very early in the books, and his character takes a very different path. We see Perrin, who, while still uncomfortable being a lord, and there are definitely issues with Perrin, he understands the responsibility, and he's always been kind of the more silent type, the serious one. And so his growth, or in his case, lack thereof for a lot of it as well, also makes sense. But really, it's Matt who goes through the motions and doesn't change nearly as much as the other characters, if you really think about it. Rand's going off to be the Dragon Reborn, Perrin's getting married and fighting in the wars and trying to rescue his wife and becoming a lord, and Matt still feels like he's just Matt. He's just, wants to go out drinking and caressing, and he has the memories of the generals in his head, so he's a great general, but he's still Matt, and he's running from responsibility virtually the whole series, and then, like a ton of bricks, responsibility catches up to him. That's the kind of person that if he would have all of a sudden just gotten serious and went with it, I don't think that would have fit. So I think kind of the Matt people wanted to see, where he continued to grow, I don't think that really fit the character. Matt's not the kind of person who would have just said, you know what, that's right, okay, I'm getting married, I'm an important person now, I'm done with everything else, I'm done drinking, I'm done going to bars and playing dice and hitting on women, and I'm just going to be 100% serious now. That's not Matt. And I don't think anybody would have wanted to see that Matt either. But it's more so because we see some of his childlike antics that it seems so jarring and seems so different. That is why, in my humble opinion, Brandon did not get Matt wrong. Brandon just wrote Matt with a more obvious look at how he was acting, instead of keeping it kind of behind the scenes as the little joke of Matt's oblivious and doesn't realize how he acts, that we saw Jordan use for most of the series. Love to have your opinions, so feel free to comment if you're watching this, whether you agree or disagree. Like I said, I'm fully aware most disagree. I will be probably doing some more of these, but not as frequently. This is the second episode I've done of my Wheel of Time hot take type show. And really, this is just fun for me, discussing some items that I have strong opinions on, especially ones that are pretty hotly debated or that I have an opinion that very much differs from the norm. My normal videos are still going to be book reviews every Friday. So if you want to check out some of those, definitely feel free. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to see more of my content, feel free to subscribe.